Welcome back to Moody Mary Gaming. I'm here with some stable chats or Haw-say chats for today. I'm just on Star Stable and we're going to be doing some barn chores and different little like side things while we chat about horses. Hello Maya, thank you so much for filling the water buckets. I'm going to do some of this myself because it's going to level my horsey up. Guys, this is that not frost feather, that's his name that I've given him, but this is the Brinkle horse breed. Does anybody remember this guy? I bought him like a decade ago. Probably not that long, probably a half a decade ago, like a few years. But I've never leveled him up, so he's so sad. I've never ridden him out and around. I bought him because I loved the blue roan coat color and I was in love with the North Swedish horse model. And so, yeah, that's how he came to my stable, but he's been hanging out in pasture board forever. So let's level you up. I love that the daily chores like grooming, feeding, all that is giving us XP now. I'm so happy. It made no sense why that did not give XP before. So I'm so glad they finally added that. Anyhow, for today's horsey chats, we are in winter time, if you can't tell by all of the decoration and the cold breath coming out of my mouth. But yeah, it's winter time, so we're gonna talk winter horse care. Before we chat, just know this is by no means meant to be taken as like veterinary advice or specific horse care advice for your horse or anyone's horse. This is just us chit-chatting about my experience with horse care. And if you have a horse or are working with horses, you definitely need to consult with a vet or your barn staff at minimum to determine what your horse needs. But we're going to talk some like general stuff today. The fun thing about the cold, it definitely makes people and horses metabolize more, so burn more energy just to keep themselves warm if they're out in the cold. So if you're taking care of a horse, you might find that your horse maybe needs a blanket. Depends on how cold the area is, but you can generally find some like blanket charts that will help you know like what temperature degrees, what type of weight you need for the horse blanket. They come in different weights, like, and that refers to how heavy the blanket is, like how much fill is in the blanket. Horse blankets are basically horse jackets and come in the same types of weights. You know, like when you put a jacket on, you can have a light jacket or like a medium weight jacket or a really heavy winter jacket, like the puffer jackets or something like that. So, and it depends on temperature and whether your horse is clipped or not and what their natural coat thickness is and all that. So how heavy you need, and we call it like light, medium, and heavy. Fun little fact about fitting a blanket to your horse. You measure from the center of their chest around the side of their body around to the center of their tailbone, like down the center. So like wrap it all the way around. Ooh, I can't control my character to hear all of this. The last horse I measured was 81 inches, and so we bought him a blanket that fit him, and he was very happy to have a new blanket because he was getting old and very cold. Another way you might keep your horse a little bit warmer is giving them more forage. So like forage meaning like hay, like alfalfa, timothy, oat, if that's appropriate for your horse. You're definitely gonna need to need to give them a little bit more of this right here during the winter. Keep their metabolisms up, keep them warm. Doing the night care at the barn, we definitely throw like 1 to 2 additional flakes of hay. If you've never dealt with hay bales before, hay bales are broken up into what we call flakes, and they're just kind of how the hay is compressed together. When the hay is cut, the grass is cut and dry into hay to put into a hay bale. The way that like the farm machinery compresses it is into like little like sections and slivers, and then all of that is packed together to create one hay bale. So it makes it possible for you to divvy it up, and you don't just like open one big square. These are square bales, by the way. I'm talking about like the people say square bales. They're not square, they're rectangles. Have you ever noticed that? That bothers me. But we don't say rectangle bales, we say square bales. And anyhow, that's how they're all compressed, and the flakes are divided up, and that's how we kind of determine how much hay we're giving a horse. We're like, you know, a lot of barns that I've worked at and been at have like a stall card with the horse's name and then what hay they get. So like 2, 3, 4 flakes. Sometimes if it's different for AM or PM, they'll do that, like morning or evening hay, they'll do that. And then they'll also have like maybe a note about, you know, this horse needs to have his halter on when it's turned out, or no turnout in the mornings, or whatever. They'll have like a little horse care notes there on the name card or nameplate, whatever you might call it. One of the other things I end up doing for like winter horse care is when I'm gonna go ride, and the horses, there's a couple of pastures where I ride right now that the ground can get a little bit muddy in different spots, and the horses, they'll get really muddy, and so it's like wet mud because it's just, you know, the ground doesn't dry out because it's too cold. And so they will have like up to their knees caked in mud from where they've been like running around, playing outside, and you can't brush that off. You just can't. It's too wet and it's too just goopy. It doesn't brush off. So what I always end up doing is I always make sure I bring a towel to the barn with me when I'm going to ride, because I never know if the horse is going to be dirty like that, and I will lead them into the wash stall. And we have a hot water option on our wash stall, which is nice. I haven't had that everywhere I've been, but I'll take a little bit of warm water and wash them off just from their leg, just where they're muddy. Like, you don't want to get them wet everywhere, but just enough to rinse off the mud, and then I will just dry them really, really thoroughly with that towel to the point that you can't even really tell that their legs were wet to begin with. So that's really helped out the horses I've ridden a lot. For their water in the winter, at the barn I ride at right now, there are 3 different like stable facilities, like 3 separate buildings, like 3 separate barns. So the barns themselves are not heated. And we always have to make sure we are turning the water off at night if it's going to get below 32, like below freezing. So we have to make sure we've gotten enough water filled up in the buckets for the horses to last through the night. So usually that's 2 or maybe 3 buckets of water depending on the horse. If your horses are out on pasture board and not in stalls overnight, you're definitely going to have to make sure they have broken up water so there's no ice on their water preventing them from getting to their water. In some places I've been, we had little like drop-in heaters. So there's a device that you could put in the water bucket that keeps it heated. Like the big rubber water buckets and stuff, that's what we put those in. Because the horses have to have their water. Oh, they got to stay hydrated. It's really deceptive in winter. A lot of people will get more dehydrated, like not realizing, because they don't feel thirsty because you're not cold. Because you're not hot. So make sure you're staying hydrated out here in the snow. The cold is deceptive. Some other things about horse care in the winter is like whenever we go riding or we go out for our lessons and it's really cold, in particular when the temperature drops very suddenly. Like we had one day the other day where it was like almost in the 70s, and then overnight it dropped into like the 40s as the high for the next day. So the horses went through a very drastic and fast temperature change. So they were very, very stiff the following day. So you have to take a lot longer to warm up, like a nice long walk. We walk the horses before we even get on them. Like we'll tack up, we'll walk out to the arena, and then we'll do like 5 or 6 laps of just like really active walking while we are unmounted, just to get them moving before we even put weight on their backs. Sometimes when it's cold, they can get a little bit fresh when it's chilly outside. They're just feeling their oats, if you will. And by fresh, I mean like they get very excitable. Like they just kind of want to run around, and they'll buck more than they normally do, or they got a pep in their step because it's chilly in the air. It's a brisk winter day. So we kind of have to accommodate for that too. Like sometimes they don't do what's best for them, and they will run around and end up potentially hurting themselves if they're not warmed up before they start doing that kind of stuff. So we have to take it slow, make sure we're paying attention to their behavior, and then taking it easy as we move into different exercises. So lots of hand walking. Hand walking came into play a lot at one of the barns I used to work at. We got snowed in so bad one time where like it wasn't just snow, we ended up iced in. Like even as the snow was starting to melt around us, because the barn cast such a big shadow in just the direction that it was built, the way that the sun came up, all the trees that were around us, like all of these different things that caused shadows to form around the area. We got stuck with so much ice that just didn't melt. Like it would partially melt. The snow would partially melt, and then it would freeze over during the night. And so then it just became ice. We could barely get them out of the barn, and we ended up we couldn't turn them out in the pastures. It was too frozen. They would slip up, and like it was a mess. But we ended up having to take them out of their stalls and hand walk them every day, each one of them for a certain amount of time, so that they could get some exercise and stretch their legs, because they need to be able to move. They can't just stand in a box stall all day long and all night long and do that repeated days. That only happens when they're on stall rest and they're resting for a specific reason, like they're injured. But yeah, and there was this one horse, bless him, he was this big Frisian that was named Pirate, and he hated the snow. That poor fellow was just absolutely traumatized by the snow. Don't get mad at me. I'm so sorry. Okay. But he would so horses, when they get scared, if you've ever been around one, you know what I'm talking about. They like when they are not sure about something and they are investigating, they might like blow out of their nose really hard, not like a snort, but like a blow, like a full, like just not one of those, you know what I'm talking about. They're very aggressive with it. It is so funny to see them do that sometimes over little things that are not scary, like snow. But Pirate, I took him out to the edge of the barn where he could see the snow, and we could get out of the barn without any trouble, but we couldn't walk very far without running into snow. And because we did clear out like a certain like area that we could walk through, but he saw all that white snow and ice, and he would just blow at it and just like bob his head up and down and like be very, very intimidated by this, inanimate object of ice and snow. And then he'd paw at it when he got bold enough to do so. And then the first time his foot went through the snow, he about lost his mind. Like, He took off for a second with me and almost I went skiing for a minute because he was not having it, but he calmed down pretty quickly. It was just he scared himself almost, but he was a very funny guy to have when the snow was around. The other horses, some of the other ones, like, were not bothered in the slightest. Had never seen it before. There was one horse that was from Florida, had never seen snow in their life, and was not in the least bothered by it. It was too funny to see the difference between the two of them. Granted, the horse that was from Florida was older, so he probably, like, seen a lot in his life already and just wasn't bothered by it. Pirate was a younger fella. He hadn't seen much of the world outside the barn that he was currently in. More, not so much winter horse care, but winter riding. I always have like one of those thin little like ear muff bands, like where it's kind of like a headband, but you just like, you can pull it over your head and then like pull it back up to like just cover like around the top of your forehead and then go down over your ears and like under a ponytail or something. I always have one of those with me when I go to the barn, because if you get one of the thinner like fleece ones, they fit under your riding helmet so much better. Because if you've got a fitted helmet, like I don't have a Sam Shield, but other people do. I have an adjustable helmet where I can do the little like spinny crank thing in the back of it, and it loosens and tightens and whatever. But if you have a fitted helmet that is fitted specifically to your head size, then you're not going to be able to fit anything very thick under there to keep your ears warm. And ooh, buddy, does it hurt when your ears get cold? I think that's so strange how like when stuff gets cold, like when like my fingers or my ears get really, really cold, they hurt. They hurt so much more. Fun stuff. Wintertime is a blast for horse people. Ooh, an owl. Hi. I love how much interactive stuff there is in Star Stable, like how there's so many things that are just happening that I'm just gonna follow this owl for a minute. It just makes the world feel like it's alive, and I love it. I love it so much. A lot of other games could do with something like this. Like take a note from that and just make your game feel more like a world, like all these little decorations and stuff. Like, I love all these they're almost like little role play areas. It's precious. Oh my gosh, can I pet one of these? Oh my goodness. Wait. Oh wait, are you gonna follow me? No, okay, it's gonna pet. That is so cute. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Adorable. Okay. I do think I might be done chit-chatting about horsies in the wintertime. So thank you for hanging out with me. And I'd love to hear your experiences or read about your experiences in the comments below with wintry horse care and horsey activities. Thank you for joining, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.